22 minutes before 7 o'clock here on the program. It's been a month since our next guest has been at the helm of the country's national carrier, that's South African Airways. The airline is an important transport enabler and an important brand for the country, but has been marred with governance challenges. And just yesterday, Parliament heard that the company's losses would far exceed what was initially projected. Vuyani Jarana is SAA's new CEO. He's here, he's in studio with us to give us an update on firstly, his first 30 days and, of course, what was announced yesterday in Parliament. It's great to see you. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
I'm sure it's been a tough 30 days. I mean, there's no getting away from that.
Look, it's been a tough 30 days. It's been learning fast, trying to diagnose the organization quickly. So one of the key things that I had to focus on when I got there is to really look at how that business makes money and how are we losing money. That was a big focus for me. Then the rest of it was more engaging the staff, but it was critical to understand how do you make money in an airline business, so that I can understand why we are not making money.
And making money in an airline, it seems at SAA is a very difficult task. How do you feel that you as a CEO can come in and do that task? Look,
the first 30 days have been very critical for me. There's been strategies that have been set at the SAA, but also South Africans would know that SAA is checkered with history of strategies. So what I needed to do is to get in and look at what is already in place, stress test it and diagnose more. So one of the key things I've really found is that the commercial strategy is the area of the greatest weakness. So if your commercial strategy is weak, the cost is cost and you have to deal with that. But commercially, SAA is very weak and vulnerable. So that's the area, that's how you run business. You must be clear about how you engage customers, how you price your product, how do you compete, where you compete, and so on. So I think those are the key things that have been a big revelation for me.
Yeah. You know, when yesterday there was an update on the finances, and I think that this really gave us a clearer indication as to how bad the situation really is at SAA. I mean, there was a projection of 2.8 billion as a loss, but it's now been pushed up as of yesterday. We saw now 4 billion.
Absolutely.
These are big numbers we're talking about.
Look, big numbers. I think if you look at the situation, of course, part of that, the escalation of those losses are also as a result of where SAA finds itself in. So when you had challenges of going concern, you could not extend contracts longer, and then when some of the aircrafts had to go back to the lessors because we couldn't extend more than 6 months in terms of the decisions taken by the board at that time, before my time. So those things attract costs which were not planned for. So the escalation of the losses are incidental as a result of where SA found itself in, which is what we are fixing today. Try and bring it back to better capital structure, the balance sheet restructuring, so that we can be able to enter into longer term contracts and be able to extract value for SAA.
Yeah, I mean, can we safely say that some of those contracts that were decided on and signed before your time have really led to the downfall of this airline?
Look, Leanne, it's simple. It's a case of saying the airline business is a very thin margin business. So whatever contract you get, you enter into, you have to be very sharp in negotiating. So make sure you get the best deal that you can get in the industry, so that you give yourself a headroom, a license to compete and play. And we're going to look at every contract at SAA to try and see if we have the best deal on the table.
Yeah. I mean, when we look at the leasing, I mean, the reality of the situation, and I'm not too sure if too many South Africans know that SAA only owns 9 of its 64 aircrafts. The rest are not owned by the airline.
So absolutely, I think those are some of the bigger issues. But I also want to really address this thing, because South Africans talk about owning and leasing almost as an ideological thing. In business, it's a commercial decision. Obviously, I would have wanted to get into SA with a stronger balance sheet. Part of strengthening the balance sheet is your asset base, which is largely aircrafts. So they are not there. However, the decision to lease or to own depends on the kind of interest rates you can get when you finance an asset versus your leasing costs. So there, you're out of the wash, then you make the right decision. So would I have hoped to get a company with a better much more stronger balance sheet. Absolutely, because it gives you the ability to trade, especially during the cyclical constraints in the market. So you're able to go out and raise debt and be able to actually weather the storm in terms of short-term cash challenges.
Yeah, and also there's the story now of giving is it 5 or 6 narrow-bodied aircrafts back?
Absolutely.
It's 6 of them.
There's 5.
There's 5, I beg your pardon. There are 5 of them. The maintenance costs on that is now going to rise. I mean, we're sitting at around about 300 million rand.
Yeah, so the escalation in losses is a part of the contribution is the exit of those narrow bodies, which were not planned in the financial statements. So when aircrafts exit, in the airline industry, there's what we call return conditions. You have to refurbish the aircraft, bring it back to close as much as you can to the condition which you took. It costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
And that became a charge into the income statement. Hence, you see the widening of the losses. So hence I said some of the escalations are more incidental as a result of where we find ourselves in. Yeah.
And this, of course, these aircraft have to be grounded for about 3 months before they can hand it back.
Absolutely. So firstly, your first cost is the fact that you have to spend money to recondition them. You have to ground them for 3 months. Then during that 3 months, you're not generating any revenue. And lastly, is that you're still paying the leasing installments because you have not yet returned. So that event has a huge impact on the financials. However, we are focusing now on what we have on the table. We are saying it is what it is, but then the big issue for me now is engaging the people of SAA in terms of the future. One of the things that's been very, very, very interesting for me is that I find people are interested to get SAA into a better platform. So I've spoken to the employees, I'm speaking to the trade unions. Across board, we're socializing the state of affairs at SAA so that we can build a new platform for the future.
I mean, we're talking so much money here. And even, I mean, the government bailout, I mean, that's only covering, I mean, you've got to repay this loan. The 7.6 billion, it was a 10 billion loan. There is just so much money that doesn't seem to be getting anywhere with the airline. I mean, it's a big money loss. Do you think it is necessary for a country to have an airliner?
Look, if you look at the role of SAA, of an airline in the Southern Hemisphere, it plays a very, very significant role. And I think many people, when they talk about SAA, there's a sense that SAA could disappear off the surface of the earth and nothing would happen. So there's massive contribution that the airline does in terms of the value add, in terms of the nation economies. The intra-Africa trade is going to need a stronger air traffic passenger system. And SAA plays in a number of ways that kind of role. 15% of South Africa's global connectivity is through SAA. However, that has to be done on a financially sustainable basis. That's what I've signed up to work with the people at SAA to make sure that we do this massive contribution to the economy, but in a manner that's not a drain in the fiscus. And that's the journey we're going to embark on. I believe I've looked at the situation at SAA, looked at the economics, looked at the strategy, look at the passenger market in the region. So it's growing. I don't see why we should not grow sustainable as SAA as well. And that's what we're going to do.
We're going to take a very quick break. We're going to continue this conversation. If you'd like to send us a tweet or comment, you're more than welcome to. But there's so many more issues to discuss after this break. Stay tuned.